All right. So, Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for all your all you do for us, for all your many blessings, and again for creativity, for these opportunities. Lord, I just pray for each of us, each of these students, with everything going on, and just everyone in this whole world. Yeah, we declare that you are Lord, and we give you thanks that you really are one of creation and creativity, and you really are able to take messes and make beautiful things out of it. And uh, and the cool thing is we get to dabble in that sort of thing too. Just taking scribbles and blobs and also turning it into something of beauty. And even in our own lives, not just on paper or canvas, but even our own lives in that way. And so we give you thanks for that. All for the glory of your Son, Jesus. Amen. All right. So, yeah, as I said, we'll just continue on. This really comes down to the basics of shading. And I've really, at this point, I'd say, have covered all the head knowledge sort of stuff. I'm sure there's probably other things out there that I haven't referred to that would come up that I may have forgotten at this point. But basically, here on in, it's just practice. And practice really plays such a huge role in everything. I'll just share a short little story from this really cool book I'm reading called Art and Fear. I should probably mention an author's name, and I forget right now. But in it, he talks about a ceramics teacher that told half his class they were going to be graded on quantity of what they produced, and the other half was going to be graded on quality. They only had to produce one thing, but they were going to be graded on how excellent and how amazing and how perfect that piece was. And in the end, surprisingly, they were the ones who produced the poorest art. Their one single piece that they just poured into everything they had was not as good as the best work of those who were just pumping out stuff. And often we think it's the other way around. And so really, once you sort of know the techniques, and you go back and you got to be reminded of it all again now and then. But you just have to practice, practice, practice. And that's why I think even at some point, a course like this, as you're going on, I really think a positive thing, or getting yourself involved, with a group where you just meet together, in person or online or somehow, just something to keep you doing it is really good. So anyway, that being said,
Rick, I found that very inspiring looking at your sketchbook, and I ordered one.
Oh, fantastic.
I think that's so really a good word about the quantity versus quality.
Yeah. It's took me a while to finally get a sketchbook. I always had sketchbooks at home when I was a kid, but they would sit on my shelf at home. And then when I felt like drawing, which for me as a kid what already was quite often, then I'd pull out the sketchbook and start drawing. But everything I drew, of course, was working towards trying to create a completed piece and doing my best. That was different. So we can have those sketchbooks at home, so that where all it is just our source of paper. So when we feel like drawing, then we've got the paper there. That's not the kind of sketchbook I mean. And obviously what you picked up, Mary Beth, you realize that what I was talking about is the sketchbook that you carry around with you, and you pull it out, ideas pop in your head. Like I take it backpacking with me. I take it to church, of course. I take it anywhere. I even take it shopping often, because if I got to sit in line, especially nowadays, I went to the doctor and I took my sketchbook with me right away. And I was, yeah. So anyways, that sort of thing, because it just keeps you going. And we all know, especially in busyness, it's so easy to stick it on the bottom of our priority list. Society doesn't. We tend to even do it ourselves. So anyway, let me go back to this rabbit. Here we go. Okay, so the steps we're gonna follow is, we got the first one, mapping it out. Notice his lines that he uses are they're a line that is like a one stroke. I wonder if I can blow this up a little bit. Oop, there we go. Okay, so a confident sort of line, not necessarily in the right place, but it's not a stuttery, sketchy kind of, hesitant. You just puts it down. Oh, got to fix it. It's a little bit off over here, the end of the ear. He did it here. Oh, that's maybe a little bit off, so it gets fixed. But he lays them in, and you working lightly, as he says, with an H lead. He puts down feel the shape, same sort of thing, and then he starts laying in the indicating where the darker shades are going to be. So line drawing, he's switched to an HB pencil, whatever. And then here's really the section now where he's really established his lights and darks, okay? Thinking about the direction of his line. In some cases, it's a very quick, almost a scribbly sort of line. When you can, as we talked about before, working towards getting your lines faster just helps bring more life into it. And notice it's layered in as we, that's the one thing I know I did this myself too when I was younger, when I was first drawing, in this dark area under the ear, when I would go to do it, I would put it in that dark on the very first shot, as opposed to layering it and building it up, as you can see here. So if you can get yourself to layer and build up your darks, and let it happen slowly before you just have that much more control over it. Okay, so so we'll go ahead, and as I said, I'm going to be working on mine. I'll be working down here on this rabbit and just talking through it as I go. And I encourage you guys to be doing, working on whatever it is that you'll be doing, because you'll get bored just watching me draw this rabbit. And I encourage you don't have to follow exactly, pick what works for you, but you have to try things more than once. If you only try it the first time and it didn't work the first time, you can't declare that quickly that's something's, oh, doesn't work for me, I can't do it, right? Otherwise, no one would ever learn how to ride a bicycle, or even learn how to walk, for that matter. So, all right. So when I do work from other people's drawings, even when I've worked out of this book, I have my own copy. It is a great book to get if you're ever considering getting your own. And I look at his final one. That's the one I'm looking to. I don't copy his steps necessarily. I refer to them, but I do look at the final one. So once again, I could flip it upside down, and I'm going to, at least just to map it out. So can I do that? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to start with it upside down. It just helps me to be able to get my mind off of what this is, and that this is simply just a bunch of shapes. And I'm going to first map out that big shape of the body. And also the whole idea is, getting it in the right place on my page, getting it in the right size. This is an exercise, drawing upside down. It's not something you want to become too dependent on. Well, you can hardly even see that. Let me see if I can get a little bit more light on my paper here. Now, mind you, I will be drawing darker eventually, but when too much light and then it goes away. you know, because when you're drawing from life, you can't go turn things upside down. So, oh yeah, I forgot to show this. This is what we did last time again. When I come to the shading part, again, keep this in mind of our cross contour lines. So I had that set aside. Again, the book, just so I can refer, because I do want to make sure I give full credit since I'm using someone else's artwork. This drawing I'm doing comes from The Art of Pencil Drawing by Gene Franks, okay? So I'm not working from my own. I am totally copying someone else, okay? So I'm not plagiarizing. I need to make sure I declare that. So I got the overall shape of the body of this rabbit. Now I want to be looking at where this head goes. I want to take my measurements. So I've checked the head is about a third the size of the body. Or I should say this shape here. Sometimes it's really good to get the overall shape, especially when it comes to curves, is to lay it out in straight lines first to get the angles of those curves, how they go. So that's a really good, another good practice is to lay these. It helps. Remember, I talked about the amount of curve is another thing that you need to pay attention to. In getting the amount of curve is in your drawing is really a challenge. You have the curve too tight or too loose, and it ends up being too big or too small. And so being able to see those as a series of straight lines helps. Okay, so I'm laying in that shape for the back leg and doing exactly that, just laying it in with straight lines. Rather than laying it in as a curve. Again, let me just do this over here. If you can break away from, from this sort of a line as you're moving, this may be that, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe you sort of like this kind of line when you're sketching it. It ends up being hard to get rid of. For me, I believe it creates unwanted texture. That's something I might, you can put in later on. Okay, let's get that ear. Negative space. I have not talked about negative space. Okay, this triangle is a triangle of negative space. Let me explain what negative space is. Negative space is, it's the space around the object. There's a thing, positive space and negative space. And that triangle, so positive space is the rabbit itself, okay? That's what we naturally normally look at. Our left brain only wants to pay attention to that, but our right brain is, you get to switch to right brain, and then we'll be able to see this shape. Let me blow this up. Okay, that triangle there, it's with the little corner chopped off by the ear. That's a bit of negative space, and this helps us establish everything in the right place. Okay, precision. This shape inside here, we could really call that a negative space shape too. Do you see? I'm tracing around with my cursor here. That's sort of, and that's drawing with relationship. You relate this to this by paying attention to that shape of negative space. I'll do the same when I get over to here, paying attention, especially these are nice because they're dark. So that shape there will help me make sure I get the foot and his throat and that ear all in the right place, okay? So there's not really, okay, here's another maybe important place of negative space right here. It'll help me pay attention to the change in that curve. Here's another bit of negative space here, okay? It's kind of nice with this rabbit, it's not overly complex, so it's not, you know, it's not too difficult to see, okay? All right, so back to this again. So that's why I've exaggerated this triangle there. By the end, I really don't want that triangle showing up like that, so obvious, because of course I want it to be, you know, paying attention to the rabbit. But at this point, that helps me get everything established. I also look at this in relation to this, and when I look back to my photo, or sorry, the drawing that I'm working from, I see that this in relation to this is off. They're too close together. So I have to.
I forgot to tell you where we dove the other day, the beach there at 38. I saw olivine sand.
Oh, hey Teresa, I didn't know if you if that was
Oh.
for Bill, but you're it's okay. You're allowed.
Sorry, I didn't know. I thought I was muted. Anyway, hi everyone. Bye everyone.
That's funny. Yeah, didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought you might want to know, just in case you start sharing secret things with Bill in front of all of us. So anyway, all right. So back to this rabbit here. So now I have to, before I continue on, and you want to be doing this as you go. So maybe this is a good thing this happened. We draw from relationship, this triangle shape in relation to this shape here. And I look at this, I look at my reference that I'm working from, and I see they're too close together, because if I draw a vertical line, let me do that. If I put a vertical line down from that, they're like, you know, they're practically touching, and that's definitely not happening on my reference. So now I have to see what is in the wrong place. Is this too far forward? Is this too large? Is this too far back? Perhaps this shape here is too squished together. There's all sorts of possibilities. And so what I do is I just keep looking back and forth between the two. Just going back and forth with my eyes from this shape to that shape, and really getting it in my mind to be able to see, where is it? And this is a tough one. Okay, I can see that this shape here, okay, so I see this angle's off a little bit. And so I do see that this is a bit
That was me.
too large. Now I don't need to erase this, but I could. But I think that may be all it is, because now when I start laying in the ear shape, which does even cut off, now it seems to work out okay. So, okay, so that just, you know, it really comes with, you know, practice, but you have to practice that. Okay, so I want to check, what am I paying attention to? Is this actually vertical? I have this vertical on my page, but is it actually vertical on my reference? It's a little bit more of an angle, like this. Okay, so verticals and horizontals are an excellent way of checking those things. Okay, so so even the curves, even though my overall shape of the rabbit's ear is curves, I am actually doing it in straight lines. Okay. Okay, so this line here, another, again, the idea of drawing by relationship. Knowing where to put this line, which is the back part of that front leg, I compare it to this line. Where are those two? And that, finding something to compare it to, how it relates to something else, I find is the easiest way, at least for me, I have found to be the easiest way to get things in the right place. Everything has to relate. If it's just in space, you know, hovering in, it's so much harder. So much harder to know where in the world does it go. Okay, so I like to do this part with the side of my pencil. If for no other reason, like holding, notice how I'm holding my pencil, I'm not holding it like this. Okay, I am holding it like this. And the reason is it helps, one simple reason is it simply helps me to make my lines lighter. I don't press so hard on the paper when I do that. Okay. But it also keeps it looser as well. Because right now I always sort of look at this part as I'm, you know, chiseling it out. If I were working, if this was a sculpture, I'd be taking off all the corners and getting that overall shape established. Okay, so here's a definite discrepancy, something I've noticed by relationship, as this shape is lower on my page than this on my drawing, but it is not at all on my reference. They are pretty much right in line. So now I have to look, what is different? And I see it's this angle. So it's pretty simple. Okay, so that just ends up getting that. Move my picture over a little bit here. I need to shrink it down a little bit. There we go. Okay. I see another issue with this tail. Yeah. Okay, so I'm comparing this to something else because I need to know, I think I have this in the wrong place. So before I go draw the tail, you know, and again, you have to keep checking because, you know, if I simply go by the fact that, oh, this is where I drew the end of my rabbit, so that's where I draw his tail because that's what I see. The overall shape may be way off, and in this case, it actually is. And now when I compare, I do see this is too far. And I noticed that by comparing this line to this line here. And if I go drawing it over here, this is too long. It's supposed to be the same as that. So I see his little tail needs to be about here. Now, how high is that? So I compare that to something, and I see it needs to be about even with this straight across. Okay. And so now I definitely, when I'm looking at this, yeah, now I can see this is definitely too long. But I'm in the early stages of the drawing. See, and this is why you want to get this established. This is what we mean by precision is important, especially later on, you know. On a rabbit, we would hardly notice, but we would definitely notice if I was drawing a nose. You know, if I'm trying to draw someone, and I, you know, if I want to make it recognizable, and I go draw the nose or the shape of the head, you know, that much too big, that's like half an inch. Boy, oh boy, it's hardly going to look like that person anymore. So let's go switch over to this side. Getting this ear shape. So I'm comparing that to about there. And I see there's a leg. Okay, so I see something else going wrong here. Something is not right between the relationship of this and this. And it's simply a matter of this line needs to be more about there. Okay, so that's just a little bit higher. And he's got another leg here. And that's about even with that. So where's the bottom of that leg? I see it lines right up with that line. That makes it nice and easy. And now that tells me where this is. Okay, so that helps a lot because I thought that ear was looking way too long. And I see that this line needs to be above where that goes. So let's mark where that's going to go. And this helps everything. I check my vertical here. And that's about there. And I see that this angle is off a little bit. So I redo that, get that back in place. And okay. So these sort of lines, these bits of construction lines, which were originally drawn in the wrong place, all of these, it's simply a matter of style, all this. Do I want to remove that? Do I not, you know, do I grab my eraser and erase that? Well, that's honestly up to you. You know, this one might be bothersome because it's going to create this line going through there. So I might just get rid of that. Remove that a little bit. I personally kind of like them. I don't know. Okay, it's just a preference thing. All right, so now I'm going to flip this over. Actually, no, let's get that eye. Let's get a few more things established here. The eye shape, whereabouts. So I check my vertical, my horizontal, and I put in my eye. And I do want to get the shape of that. So I'm going to use straight lines again, because that helps establish my curves, how the curves go. Okay, so I've compared it to this, and I've moved it over to, I see where it lines up with that. I saw where it lined up with this, and where it lines up with that, and I'm pretty close. And now we've got the little shape of his little rabbit nose. Okay. Let's go ahead and get a few dark areas. Okay, so I'm going to actually draw for some of these. They're so obvious. I'm going to actually draw around where the highlight or shadow is. So we have a highlight right here, so I'm going to draw that in. Okay. This is rather important to know. Which line am I supposed to be going off of? I think it's actually in between there. So it's about like that. And there's a, yeah, there's a definite highlight there. There's a definite highlight right there. Okay, so there's a line established there, and we have a definite highlight in shadow shape that comes along here. Let's get this a little more in place. There's because remember, shape and location of these shadows and highlights, shape and placement is so important, okay? Oh yeah, that by the way, when we were doing that little worksheet, that was the other word. I think we wrote down location or placement, whatever you want to use, but I did find out that placement was the word that I had in mind for that. Okay, so I'm getting that worked out. Because this is a furry rabbit, I can be a lot looser with the placement and the shape of these, because a lot of this is determined by his fur, and we all know that, you know, fur can be out a little bit, which is very different. However, if you are drawing a recognizable human and you have to get the cheekbone just right, the shape of the eye, the shadow on the nose has to be super precise in order for us to know who it is that we are drawing. Okay, so I'm going to flip that now. Go ahead and flip my reference. Okay. And now I can look up the two to compare and go from there. All right. So HB, I'm going to go just a little bit darker when I start shading. 3B is a bit dark. I don't know actually what I have here. I have my pencils. Got a 3B there. Here's a B. I think I might go with my B. 8B, I'm definitely not going to work with that. Okay, so I'm going to work with my B pencil. And now go ahead and paying attention to his form right away. I want to start establishing the direction of my shading lines. Okay, where's my little sandpaper pad? Okay, I don't want a real sharp point on my pencil, so I'm going to purposely soften the point up a little bit. So it's just spinning it, rounding it out. Okay. Grab a piece of scrap paper and make sure, because sometimes you can put it down and it will just create a really hard line. And so I want to get that sort of, make sure that's smoothed out there. Okay, so I will often even test my lead. All right, so let's get some of this laid in. Now, quite accurately, let's lay this in. I can see on my reference, there's some reflected light. Let me show you. Let me go back to the image here. If you guys want to take a look at this quick minute. Reflected light is light bounces, as we all know. It bounces off of whatever objects, and we can see this. So there's this little light part on the ear, on his throat, on this ear back here, on that hind leg. That's reflected light, so it's on the edge. I think this part is actually just simply some white coloration in the rabbit that looks too big to be actual reflected light. But pay attention to those little strips of lighter shade, okay, lighter tone, because that's reflected light, okay. And it usually is going to be soft on the edge, okay. And then so it goes from the light. So if you take a look at the bottom part of the ear, let me blow this up, okay. Just in case you hear the term. So we have the reflected light right next to that. Notice that's the darkest area. That's called the core shadow. Okay, the core shadow is always a little bit darker, and then it moves into our regular shadow there. Okay, on this side again, we have the reflected light moving over to the core shadow, moving over to just our regular shadow. So let's shrink this little guy back down and bring up the drawing. And move this over and continue on. All right, so I don't want to go as dark as the real thing yet. I want to build that up. Layering just can produce, what do you call it? Like a luminosity? Is that the right word? It's like a depth. It helps it just make it not seem so stiff and plastic. Okay, so I'm going to change directions here. I'm going to lay this in. Now I sketched that highlight there just as a circle, but in reality it's not a circle. So, but as that gets darker, I know that's going to disappear. Let's get this. I'm going to press a little bit harder right away for that. Not the full, not as hard as it is fully. But let's get that background established. Not going to complete the whole thing. Let's get a little bit more of an interesting line there. He's almost a mean looking rabbit, so something's wrong with the shape here. I don't want my rabbit looking quite so mean. Looks almost evil with that eye there. So if I just put that down, this is where I'm going to alter it a little bit from the original. Get that pupil sort of established. Sort of staring off into the middle of nowhere. I'm going to change that. I'm going to give him, move the pupil back there. Looking a little bit scared or something. Okay. There's a definite white coming around there that I don't want to lose. And wow, he just keeps looking angry, this rabbit. So I got to tone that down. Again, let's not get that quite so dark. As I said, some artists would just think it's atrocious that I pick up an eraser and use it. Oh well. I have no trouble with using it if I feel it's time. And I also, when it's not time, when it's time to let all my lines show, then I leave them as well. So it's getting again my darker areas established, setting up your darks and your lights. Value is so important. Work towards the details and the subtlety. Start with the bold, obvious contrasts and work your way down to everything else. Okay, so I'm going in more than one direction using a fairly sort of scribbly line. This is really curved, so I'm going to use a curved line to establish that right away from the start. And this gets quite dark in here, so let's get that established as well. Now I have to make sure I'm in the right place. Yeah, holding the pencil way back here just really helps make sure you don't press too hard. Okay, because of the angle, it's actually it stops you from pressing too hard. So I really like to do that when I'm starting. And then, I'll give a little extra if I can there. So you'll notice once again, I am working the whole rabbit at once. I'm not finishing out, getting all the detail, working the head completely, and then moving on. Detail is just so not important in establishing the essence of anything. Okay, it's the big. The big is what you have to focus on. The big relationships. That's what matters. If you don't have those big relationships established, you're not. The details just can't hold on their own. Details are simply a matter of your own choice. How detailed do you want to make it? The viewer doesn't need them. Not to get the essence of your drawing, not the, whether if it's if you're drawing a human, drawing some sort of machine, an animal, a landscape, a mountain, whatever it may be, the details are just, there's one thing you remember, don't build on the details until you're ready for it. Okay, so there's dark back here. All right, so I'm going to follow my shape. And when you take a look at mine compared to the final one, you're going to definitely see mine is going to feel different. It's not going to be exactly like his, and that's okay. Yeah, don't stop your your own personality coming out. It's, we all have our own signature. Let your drawing have its own signature, right? We're not doing forgeries. That's a skill for sure. And if I wanted to become a forger, I would have to be, really improve on a lot of my skills. A lot of my, I wouldn't, I'll be honest, I don't have what it takes to be a forger. Could I? I don't know. Maybe I could if I really put the 10,000 hours or whatever it takes to get to that point. Okay. But the point is, again, I'm trying to capture the essence of this, and in the end, I want them to feel alive, and I want them to feel interesting. Every line I put down should be attractive. Okay, not just the overall final rabbit itself. Okay, so that's my B pencil. Now I'm going to move to my 3B pencil, which is going to be much darker now. Okay, and it's got a nice soft point. Let's test it. It's got the one. Yeah, so that's a nice sort of soft. And again, I'm not going to try and finish this all in one shot. I'm going to keep on layering. But now I am slowly going to be pressing a little bit harder here and there, establishing. I think what I might do, for the sake, you've already hopefully understand, because it's already almost 9 o'clock. You already understand that as I'm working this, I would work the whole piece. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on simply the head, because now is where, for the sake of time, okay, so pretend I'm doing the whole thing, but I am going to just now really try to get as precise as I can just with this. Let me get that laid out. And right away, immediately, as soon as I look at this, I see that there is part of why my rabbit looks more upset, or more, he doesn't look as friendly, is the size of his eye. It's too small. His eye is too small. Funny, I couldn't see that before. I didn't see it before, but now I'm seeing it for sure. It's too small and it's too high up. It needs to be lower. So I'm going to just go ahead, use my eraser, switch back to my, I can't find my HB. And I'm going to we're going to round that out. There we go. Okay, so I just noticed that now. And so I make a quick change. So don't stop observing. Okay, so there's a good good lesson. Keep observing the whole way through as you're working. This is, see, and it's incredible as you even come to this point and you really are looking now even more carefully. You'll begin to see even more accurately to find out, oh shoot, that's out of place. Oh shoot, I got that part out of place. And you decide at that point, you know, how necessary is it, something you really need to fix or not. Okay, because some things simply aren't really that necessary to fix, especially if you're working in this in the area of animals or trees or, you know, a mountain or something like that. Because again, if you start getting too caught up in perfectionism, you will lose the life of it. You know, even though I say it's okay to use erasers and stuff, please, you know, don't get carried away with the eraser. Perfectionism will just kill the piece. If you're working towards, if you like that trompe l'oeil type art, Mary Beth, you can correct me if I pronounce that wrong again. I liked the way you said it the other day.
That was so much better than the way you said it before.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
It's trompe l'oeil.
Trompe l'oeil.
Yeah.
I'm the French, or well, not the French Canadian. That's probably not French. I'm the Canadian. I should be knowing my French better. But anyway, thank you.
Well, I took 7 years of French.
Oh, wow. That's more than I had to start in 5th grade and it was mandatory, but unfortunately, sadly, it was just part of our culture. It was not cool to speak French. We were, yeah. Anyways, I won't get into that. That's a whole history. Anyway, so again, establishing this. I'm trying to keep my lines loose. You'll notice I'm not purposely doing any blending. It's not soft blending that is going to establish the accuracy of this rabbit. Okay, that's not what's going to do it. It's simply getting my darks and lights in the right place, getting the values, getting the edges, and you can do that with a very tight sort of line, where in the smooth edge where there's you know, where you see no pencil line at all, or you can also do it with where you see all your pencil lines. Okay, so I'm again slowly building this up, getting this, and I keep going and going till my darkest darks have reached their place of value, right? So values again are darks and lights, and I could use this. I could put this up against the screen, match it up, find find that gray, and then match it up over here. Okay, so especially if you're working from a black and white, these are great. Okay, and you can even make your own. You could make your own sort of value finder, grayscale, and compare it to that, and then compare to this. Okay, did I get it dark enough? That sort of thing. So again, I just keep building this up. I'm gonna go ahead and get a few of these whiskers in here right away. This is where I'll need to put, I should find some music or something on the video for if you guys go back to it, or you just listen to some music, because it does start to get, yeah, I can just keep on talking about what I'm doing, but I'll start to just babble. But again, the things that if you're watching, if you're looking at this, to pay attention to, what I'm trying to do is build it up slowly, pay attention to the direction of my line and the quality. Does my line have any interest to it? Okay. In the edges of my shapes, especially in this, like if I'm not careful, he'll look all polka dotted. So as I get these dark areas established, it's important that, especially for this, because I want him to feel soft. He's got to feel soft like a little bunny. And so every edge has to be pretty much soft. This would also be good. Those kneaded erasers. I don't think I have my kneaded eraser here. It's up above. Those kneaded erasers I should be showing you. They're actually a drawing tool. They're those gray ones, and they're kind of like putty or something like that. And you can mold them, shape them into a point or whatever. And they're actually for not for erasing mistakes. They're for simply drawing highlights back in, drawing in your light areas. Okay, so I'm getting my So once again, if I was doing this normally, I would not only be focusing on the head. I would be doing this on every part. Okay. I'd be doing the whole body, the whole rabbit at the same time. That helps make sure I establish the relationship of values. The values have to relate to each other properly. Okay. And you all understand that if you don't, something to understand is a values are relative. They look darker when they're next to something lighter. Okay. You put a dark gray next to a lighter gray, and it will not look as dark unless you, would not look as dark as if you put it next to white, right? And a light gray will look lighter in value when it's next to black. So that's why it's important, you know, to build the whole thing up slowly. All right. I've had so many students just you get things too dark too soon. All right. Let me just sort of show you as I'm outlining this. I want to make this line interesting. So I'm not going to make a solid sort of line. Okay, so I try to create a line that has, you know, it changes in thickness, it gets really thin. That's just way more attractive than, you know, something that has the same thickness all the way through. You don't have to put that outline around things. That's a total preference. It sort of accentuates the shape. I don't know, like, you know, of course we all know none of us is walking around with these black outlines around our bodies, or, you know, there's no black outline around my hand. There's no black outline around an object, but that doesn't mean we can't outline it, okay? If you are going to, just make sure you're doing so in a way that's attractive, okay? So here's where those gradation, those value scales. Remember I was talking about being able to create soft gradations, and the skill in that comes in something like this, in this ear, because that's what we have going on here. By the way, this paper I'm working on is terrible. This is not a good drawing paper. It does not have a good tooth to it. So it's not really grabbing the graphite, literally not pulling the graphite off my pencil. So so I end up almost having to press too hard in order to really get my values that I want. So that being said, I'm going to switch to, so I only have a 3B. Oh, there's an H. This is where I should have a 5B or something, but all I have down here is my 8B. This is a little dangerous. This is practically now switching over to charcoal, but I really want to get some nice blacks established here. So now that I'm working in details, you can see I've changed how I'm holding my pencil. Okay, so getting these details. Now, a soft pencil, that if you want something with a sharp point, that does not hold its point for very long. A little bit of extra hard pressure and it will soften it. It'll lose its point pretty quick. So I can do it with this. I can do it with this. If I really want a sharp point to get some of these details around the eye. Okay. More pointed as well is going to create the darker line. So I'm laying in now my final contrasts. Layering We've been layering all this time. I want to keep the loose sort of feel. You see that edge starts to get a little bit too hard. Let's get some dark down here. I almost start to lose my reflected light there. So it's really, again, because these grays are against white, we may really think, oh, wow, they're already pretty dark already, but they're not at all. And you can see how when I get the darks in there, how much more the whole image really pops. Okay, so don't be afraid, we may have thought that was dark, but don't be afraid to go really dark and really get those darks as dark as you can, but build it up slowly. Yeah. So you don't overdo it and get it too dark and out of place and where it's lost the relationship with anything else. So okay, all right. Well, you guys are really quiet. No one has any questions or anything today, or I'm curious. I'm not even looking up at you guys. This is such a totally different way of teaching. Usually wandering around my classroom looking what everyone's doing. Sorry, someone started speaking?
I just said I'm just really trying and listening.
Awesome. That's the key, is you just really try. And suddenly, yeah, it's like so much is like riding a bike or learning to surf or anything. You just keep on trying, and after a while you're like, I don't know why that was so hard at first, an artist who thinks they're going to ever reach a point of being able to be 100% successful is fooling themselves. And I think that's the first way to establish yourself to quitting and giving up, is having this sort of ideal that you are going to, be at a place where you don't need to grow or learn, and you're gonna you're gonna get to a place of full success. I think I mentioned that before. I'll just say it again. I call it a healthy dissatisfaction. That's my own little term. I don't know.
Rick, I just have to chime in. He's
Sure.
so adorable. I just love the character you're giving, his little nose and face.
I totally agree. He is so darn cute.
Well, he doesn't look so mean anymore. So I didn't like how he was looking so mean. So I could, and like I say, I would have here. I'll compare them. I'll bring up I'll show the one on the screen here. What I've been looking off of. There it is. My apologies for that.
Woo!
Let me straighten this out. Okay. So there it is. What I've been working from. And, you're going to find some differences. I can actually see already, even in the shape of the head, mine is a little bit lower. I changed the angle, and part of it was I just wanted him to look a little more friendly. Okay. Anyway, So,
Yeah. It looks much friendlier and cuter.
so, and again, that's to encourage you guys to, yeah, always approach what you're working from as your reference, you know, because you're never going to hang that on the wall. No one's ever going to look at the work you are working from, whether it's a photograph or in this case someone else's artwork, or even, you know, the still life that you set up, or, you know, they're only going to look at your final piece, and that's you know, where your final judgment comes from it. So anyway, I don't know if I can move that a little closer. You can see some of the details. So you can see, there you go. You know, you can really see the pencil line is totally showing there. I've tried to keep it loose to keep them feeling alive. It does also help with the texture. And tried, I was thinking, you know, the cross contour lines to give me the direction of where it's going to go to help bring out the form as well in that. Okay. I've got my darks fully dark. I don't normally go with an 8B pencil. I hardly ever work with an 8. I think it's just because this paper, like I said, didn't have the proper tooth, so it wasn't really picking up the graphite as quick as a good paper might be. So I would love to see what any of you guys may have done. If anyone's, did we lose a few? Oh, we lost Monique already, I see. So
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that Monique should tell us how to pronounce trompe-l'oeil.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, yeah, that's what I need to be looking to. I don't. If you guys are able to, I was just thinking, if it works, if you want to show your piece, rather than pick up your piece and hold it, trying to hold it in front of your phone, is it possible to pick up your phone and then hold your phone? Just leave your piece sitting on your table and hold your phone above your piece and try and hold it as still, you know, rest your elbows or something like that.
I'm trying to scan mine.
Yeah, you know, if you can do it that way too or something like that. But and there's Katie or Elizabeth or Levi and whoa, you're working with color. You've been painting this whole time. Awesome, Teresa.
Well, actually, this was my line drawings I practiced with yesterday, and then I painted them today. And then
Super.
so I'm not doing the pencil stuff because I'm just back here.
Yeah.
I'm at doodles.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Zen doodles, and then the stitching, the line drawings, I guess. So anyway,
I love your Zen doodle. Well, I like both of them, but I love your Zen doodle. That's so pretty.
it was super fun. Oh, and by the way, Rick, I found the Zen doodle examples from on the internet like you had, and I printed some out,